Okay, welcome everybody to our House Plants 101, or I don't know what Patsy's going to call it, class. I am super excited. I do not have a green thumb for most things. I have a lucky bamboo on my desk, and it does have a green thumb, or it's doing really well, thankfully. But I have another one that I look at, and it's just so sad. So I asked Patsy to help. I've messaged her several times and said, "What do I do? What do I do?" And she gives me great advice. And finally, I said, "Why don't we do a class?" So I am so happy and just excited to introduce you to Patsy Mettenbrink. She is a master gardener. She's in Nebraska and is a Young Living executive, I think, too. So she's been using oils, I know, for a long time. And I'm super excited to learn from her. So thank you so much for joining us. And Patsy, take it away.
Hello, friends. Thanks for joining us tonight. Like Britta mentioned, she asked me to share some tips. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I don't want to take up much of your time tonight. First things first, though, since we're going to be sharing the majority of our own experiences, we need to go over the disclosure statement from Young Living. Opinions expressed in the presentation are solely our own and do not express the views or opinions of Young Living. Young Living does not endorse, is not responsible for, and makes no representation or warranties regarding such content nor its accuracy. We encourage you to verify explanations and opinions presented, and Young Living shall not be liable for any harm resulting from or in connection with reliance on any such content. When we're talking about Young Living, I think the most important thing that we need to remember is our seed to seal process. This is hugely important because the FDA almost has no regulation whatsoever on the safety measures of the essential oils industry. So like the oils found in your drugstores and big box stores online, and even from other oil companies, they've been tested and found to have harsh chemicals and synthetic fillers inside them, basically a cheap grade perfume. And they will distill at very high temperatures with high pressure, and that's usually using chemical solvents as well. That's yielding an adulterated oil, and it still can be labeled 100% pure essential oil. That is just a horrible, scary thing in my opinion. Young Living had decided to go above and beyond, and they have created their own very strict guidelines and to ensure the purity of their products. It is called the Seed to Seal Guarantee Quality Commitment. They abide by very strict guidelines that fulfill their promise in sending only the very best products into our homes. And the best part is if the oils do not meet the high standards, they are rejected and they're not bottled as Young Living products. So we can all sleep good tonight knowing that we're getting the absolute best when we bring Young Living into our home. You can check out more at seedtoseal.com. And indoor houseplants and Young Living essential oils are two of the most effective ways to immediately shift energies, positive energies in your home. And when we invite a little bit of nature into our indoor spaces, we lift the energy and we also improve the indoor air quality. As humans, we started in the Garden of Eden and we evolved together with nature and plants. And it's only recently in our history that we have started spending the majority of our time indoor without connecting to fresh outside air and nature. Luckily, houseplants, along with our oils, can help to remove toxins from the air inside of our homes and bring life-giving energy into our home. There is definitely science behind these theories. It's not theory, it's proven fact. NASA did a study where they explored and tested a variety of houseplants, and they measured how they purify the air, removing toxics like the xylene, benzenes, a whole gamut. You can go to NASA Clean Air study, and the study is there. It shows exactly what they did and all the chemicals that are removed from using plants in your home. Also, other studies have suggested that active interaction with indoor plants can reduce physiological and psychological stress compared with working on computers. This is accomplished through suppression of the sympathetic nervous system, activity, and the diastolic blood pressure, and it promotes a comfortable, soothing, and natural feeling. So you're probably wondering what kind of plants will work in your home. Well, there's endless possibilities. You need to do your homework before you start going into the store and buying, making purchases. There are excellent resources that you can find online, as well as some publications, printed publications. And this is probably backwards, but I just found this nice little book to add to my repertoire. It's How Not to Kill Your Houseplants. It's the survival tips for the horticulturally challenged. And it is written by Veronica Peerless. And on the side, it will go through different plants. And if you have sunny spots, what are the 5 best plants for your sunny spots? Just nice little tidbits. It goes through the uses, what plants are wanted in their environment to be ideal, and it also has suggestions if things go awry. So that's a nice little resource. Also, like I said, you can find more resources online. So when you're evaluating your living quarters, you want to look at how much space you have to devote to your plants, the lighting, temperature, airflow, air movement, family members, pets, and your traffic patterns in your home. You need to take into consideration these factors and then compare them to the ideal conditions for the plant to thrive. Some plants are very forgiving, and other plants are divas, like our own dear Melissa. So you have to think about what you want to accomplish with your plants. A good reminder is that a majority of the stores that do sell live plants are specifically designed for eye appeal. They push their products that way. And if you're like me, it's kind of like a kid in a candy store when you go in and see all those beautiful flowering plants, just the green plants, and it's just hard to resist. But impulse buying is a budget buster for one, and it can also end in disappointment when you're purchasing the wrong plants for your home. So how can you take care of them? It's relatively easy. It's basics. You're going to have good potting soil, the right potting soil, water. Some plants can't handle our tap water because the chemicals in them just really cause problems. You need to use distilled water or rainwater. If you can get rainwater, that's ideal. Organic fertilizers are best. And you do have to consider time that you'll have for watering and taking care of problems as they arise. The following products help support the life of the plants that you choose to bring into your environment. We have the Thieves line. I repurpose my bottles. This is the Thieves hand soap, but I put my Thieves cleaner, the light dilution, into this bottle. And then I have this for my plants, because I have this for house cleaning because it's a little stronger. The other product I use an awful lot of is our dish soap, which, by the way, is a loyalty reward this month of August. And Thieves hand sanitizer. You're wondering, why hand sanitizer? Well, there are white little mealy bugs that get on plants, and the quickest removal is with alcohol. So here is your ticket to getting rid of those little valves and scale. That's one of my favorite. And where's my other? I don't have the Thieves spray, but I do have the new Thieves wipe. I really like these Thieves wipes because, like, when you're going to do some dissecting on your plants, you need to clean the blades of your scissors, your snips, your shears, whatever you're going to use to take care of your plants. Make sure that you're wiping down after each cut, especially if you have a disease or virus issue. I also always have around a designated tube of lip balm, and that's simply for my fingernails because I go around the cuticles because I have dry hands all the time. So I go around my cuticles, rub that in, and that's going to help before I start working on any plant.
Patsy, can I interrupt for just a second? First of all, the cuticle thing, I think it helps also keep the dirt from your cuticles, doesn't it? Didn't you tell me that once?
It does.
Yeah.
Yep, it does. And then also the bar soap, which I left in my pickup. And anyway, if you scrape your fingernails down your bar soap, then you get that soap underneath your fingernails. If you're not wearing gloves, excuse me, then it's much easier to clean. Because
So-
you got the soap already there and the dirt won't get underneath there.
Going back to your dilution that you said in the big bottle that you dilute the Thieves Hustle Cleaner, how strong? And then going back another step, how do you know what kind of water a plant needs? If it needs distilled or tap or rainwater, whatever.
When you read about a plant that you might be looking at to getting, it will tell you, because some can't handle the chlorine that's in the tap water. And there's lots of district water that uses chlorine. And I use the light dilution, like for light cleaning application. So it's going to be 30 parts water to 1 part of the cleaner, 1 cap of the cleaner. And that's what I use for spraying on the plants if I don't have a major bug issue to take care of. I use various oils. And I have a couple of recipes here. Purification and Thieves are always go-to, and I like Digice as well. And if you really want to kill something, use cinnamon bark because it will kill it dead. I don't recommend that unless you got weeds, and that's for outside gardening. Like I mentioned earlier, you're going to need some pruning shears, some sharp scissors, and you want to make sure it's a sharp cut because a dull, ragged cut is going to be bad for the plant, and it will also cause more spreading of disease that you're trying to stop if you do have to do some pruning. Decorative pottery is beautiful to look at, but you need to do like what Britta has done with her plants. You have to have a plastic insert that has drainage holes. I'm going to hold this plant up here. I know you can see the drain holes here. That's going to allow the water to get out so you don't have stagnant standing roots in standing water, because most of the plants that are air purifying require high moisture content and they need the well-drained soil. So you don't want to keep the roots standing in water because then you're going to have root rot and it shortens the span of your plant's life. So to get some good moisture, humidity, our diffuser here is great. I have a diffuser sitting in the middle of my plants on my table at home, and it's amazing how much humidity that creates around that atmosphere. Another thing that I do is, especially with the orchids, the Phalaenopsis orchid, is I have a couple of bigger glass trays, probably 14-inch diameter, like what you'd find inside of a carousel microwave, works really well. Then get some small, you can use marbles. That's kind of fun. Tell your grandkids start playing with them. Or you can use those beautiful decorative glass rocks. They'll have a uniform shape. Put those on the bottom of that tray. Then you're going to add your water, especially distilled water is usually best. Then you'll set your plants directly on top of that. And you can use your decorative pots too. The one thing I would caution is to see that if your decorative pot, if you're using stoneware pottery, is to see if that bottom edge of it is sealed so it's not absorbing that water directly into that pot, because it causes a crazing on the outside of the pot and shorten the pot's life as well. When you do have those nasty little problems attack your plants, there is a spray that you can use. Get a 4-ounce bottle, glass spray bottle, of course. Put in 10 drops of tea tree, Melaleuca, 10 drops of peppermint, and 10 drops of citronella in a 4-ounce container. I usually add just a smidgen drop of the Thieves dish soap, because that will act as an adherent for the oil. And then you can top it with your distilled water. And I like to add a smidgen of vodka. Just helps it disperse a little easier. And that is when you have gone in and had to do some dissecting on your plants. And it's a good idea to spray those areas very lightly, just kind of a quick little spritz on that area, and that will help to the plant to fight off the invader that was causing the damage in the first place, namely viruses and bacteria. Back to our water-loving plants. Does anybody else get those little flies, those little natty black flies that start showing up? And they really show up now because of the season we're in with bringing the fresh produce in from our gardens. It's just like, how do those gnats appear? Where do they come from? Number one, and how do you get rid of them? There's a diffuser recipe, and it's 2 drops of basil, 2 drops of peppermint, 2 drops of lavender, 2 of clove, and 2 of eucalyptus radiata. So then you put that in your diffuser with your water, of course. And that helps to keep those bugs at bay. Now, another thing with those little bugs is they are usually there because the top, I'd say, 1/2 inch of your potting soil is too moist. So if you let that dry out at least to 1 inch, 3/4 inch to 1 inch, they're not going to be showing up. They're not going to be laying their eggs. And then those little maggots are not going to be, somebody just came in the back office, sorry, are not going to be laying their eggs. Now, their maggots usually don't affect plants, but if you have a bad infestation, they will do root damage. They will eat the roots. So it's always good to kind of nip those guys in the bud before they get carried away. So by using the Young Living products in our lives, as well as that of our plants, we can be confident that we're caring for our plants and we're exceeding most of the organic standards. We can achieve this healthier lifestyle. It's affordable, sustainable, and without the use of harsh chemicals. Because just using a few of these drops is going to be less than $1, and it's more beneficial than going down and buying some chemical. You're not going to know what's going to happen to your plant if you use a chemical, if it's going to have some adverse reaction to your plant. I will caution you, with the leaves, you'll notice that some plants are fuzzy on the surface. And like an African violet plant, they are an understory plant. They do not like to have their leaves wet. So if you're going to be using any spray, you should do from the bottom underneath the foliage and also water from the bottom. So you would set them in a saucer, let them absorb the water and leave them there 15, 20, 30 minutes. You'll kind of know how the plant likes to take it up, and then remove it to another area so that will drain out any water. But don't spray it directly onto the leaves because it will cause spotting and it can cause fungus to start. So it's kind of a wicked cycle when you do that. Most plants, I would do a test on a smaller leaf. I'm going to grab, this is a split leaf philodendron, it's called, and it is Monstera is a technical name. So if you put a spray, I would do 1 leaf and then take and wipe off the top and the bottom. Don't forget the bottom, because most of the stomata where the plants breathe are on the undersides of the leaves. So just give them a nice little bath, so to speak. And another thing that you can do with these plants is get a towel, like a tea towel. I like to use a pillowcase. Set it in the pillowcase, get a big rubber band, tie it around the top of the plant with a rubber band. And then you can put this in the shower or in a big sink of water and let them saturate up when they get over dry. This guy is over dry. I can pick him up and I could probably, well, he's root bound right now, so I'm not going to be able to pull him out. I have to work on that. But you would be able to pick him up, but still that potting soil that's on the top, mostly the organic matter, the bark, that's going to keep it. If you have it in that towel or pillowcase, it's going to keep it from going down your drain. And then you're not having to be calling on a plumber. So that's one little tidbit. And I have a pesky little fly in here. What questions does anybody have?
So I would love to know, a lot of times people will take plants outside in the summer. So how can we protect them? You and I've talked about this, but how can we protect them while they're outside? But then when we bring them back in, how can we make sure that bugs and critters don't come into our home as well?
Right. And they will come in. they like to hide underneath the leaves. So once again, we'll grab a pothos here. You're going to check the undersides of these leaves before you do bring it in. And pothos is a favorite of a critter that lives in my little farm area. And I took a plant probably 4 times this size outside last summer and set him outside thinking, hey, he's in the shade. This is going to be good for him outside. And lo and behold, the next day I went out, he was almost gone. A caterpillar got in there and thought it was the best thing since Ninja Red. So always be careful when you set them outside. I would probably spray them with the Thieves soap or the dish soap or the Thieves cleaner, because that's going to be a deterrent to whatever might be wanting to chew on your plants. Also, you're going to have to watch the sun, because they will sun scald. As you can see this guy here, I don't know if you can see that brown part of that leaf. That's a sun scald. He got too hot. So rotating plants is good if you have them in a window. Just kind of keep rotating them. I don't know, take and rotate a quarter of a turn every so often, which prevents them from growing to one side. So this guy was at the back and he got neglected, didn't get turned around. So he doesn't look pretty in uniform like this one. So watch your sunlight, because it will. Now, when it's outside, you will bring it in when temperatures get below 50 degrees at night, especially. So watch the temperatures at night. Before you bring it in, you can start to declimatize, reclimatize to your inside environment, which is drier. You're going to have to start misting them more. There's so much humidity in Iowa and Nebraska now with all the irrigating and everything we're doing. But when you bring it in, move it in for a couple hours during the day, mist it while you have it in there, and then set it back outside. And then just gradually reacclimatize it to your home, because we have extremely dry environments in our home. You will need to do the pillowcase trick or the towel trick and soak the plant. I take and put probably, depends on the size of the diameter of your pot. I would put 2 to 3 drops of the dish soap on the surface of the soil, and then I would water it in. Most of our plants head to the shower, and that's the first place they go when they get back coming in full time. So then I have them in the shower for 20, 30 minutes. Again, they're in pillowcases, and I rotate them in and out. And what is happening is when you have that soap in there, it's going to kill any of the bugs. Maggots are huge, and especially with the Japanese beetle infestation we have now, they're laying eggs in there, and those things are awful. So that will help to deter them from sticking around. And if you have if you think that you might have an issue with that, I would sure pull the pot out, inspect, because they kind of stick to the outside of the pot and they can move around a little bit easier there. Look to see if you have any of those little white grubs or any maggots. Another one that's famous for coming in and catching a rider, scale and whitefly. Now the scales look like little brown bumps, and they have a waxy coating on them, and some of them can look like cotton. And then you have the mealy buds that look like cotton as well. They like to hide on the underside of the leaves. So again, if we're going to use our Thieves Household Cleaner, spray completely top and bottom, and it is very labor intensive. I am telling you that. That's why I kind of like to use the shower method, because you can at least get the top and then go back underneath and grab any hitchhikers. Check if you have pots that are in your draining saucers, I like to call them. A lot of your plants now with the plastic containers have that snap-in container that drains. I pull that off, clean that completely out with the Thieves cleaner, and then check the bottom of your roots. See if you got white roots coming up through there, or if they're darkened, brown, black. Then I would pull the pot off the root mass and see what's going on. And then clean it if you need to. Sometimes our plants are too heavy to move. Like Britta's got that beautiful ponytail palm behind her with little furry leaves, fluffy leaves coming off. That's a beautiful plant right there. Anyway, That can get to be, my uncle in Dallas had one and it was probably 20 feet tall. And I would say at least 8 to 10 foot diameter. Absolutely gorgeous specimen. You can't move stuff like that, folks. Not without a crane. When it gets to that situation, you need to have, you can't repot it. There's just no way, especially, I mean, it's just sheer magnitude of trying to redo that. He had to grow in the soil, but what you do is repot the top 3 inches of the soil when you need to repot the plant. You're not replacing all the soil in it. You're just taking and putting the top 3 inches with new soil. So you'll take a spoon or a trowel and then just kind of gradually tease that older soil off the roots. Most of the roots are going to be at the surface of that plant. And then once you have done that, you can top it off, so to speak, with the new soil. And every year, like with these plants here, they're past their prime, but in the spring, you should step up your plants in the spring that are potted and go 2 inches bigger in diameter. If you go any more than 2 inches, you're going to have issues with the plants kind of going, help, there's too much soil here. I don't know what to do. And then they suffer because of that. It's a situation that I recently come into realization with my Clivia plant. They like to be completely root bound, so much so that their roots are pushing up through the soil from the top of the plant. Well, I thought it needed more space. It was in a 4-inch pot and I put it in a 10-inch pot. So now my bottom leaves are turning brown and they're droopy. So what did I do wrong here? Well, duh, obviously there's too much soil, doesn't know what it's doing. And I'm sure my internet connection is unstable. So I apologize if I lose y'all. I don't know why it's doing that. I'm supposed to be on the high Wi-Fi or whatever.
We're good. We're good. So how do you know when to repot it? I mean, do you just do it every year, or because I've always heard like if the leaves, you know, start turning brown at the ends or whatever, then you're supposed to repot. But what if they don't? Or
if they don't, you can leave it. Your first clue is going to be, if you look at, like when I tried to pull this guy out, I couldn't do it. So that means the pot is, I mean, the roots are stuck to the sides of the pot. So I'm going to have to tease it away. Usually the best way to do that is just turn the plant on its side, hold your hands, turn it on its side and roll it back and forth. And when you do that, it releases enough that you can lift it and pull it. And this little feller is just not wanting to do that. Wait, here we come. Okay, so see all those roots, especially those big, white, thick, and how it's circling the bottom? That means he wants to go to a new home. I don't know how well that shows up, but so I need to step him up with another pot. And then what you'll do is you'll take and put, wow, I made a nice nest. You can use your little pebbles for the bottom to increase the drainage. I have, for the moisture loving plants like these guys are, I have taken a Dollar Tree sponge and cut it in half and put that over the drain holes. And that way the soil will stay in the pot. When you're putting in your new soil, you'll probably put in about that much new soil in the bottom, and then you'll put your plant in the center, and then you're going to fill in around the sides with your new soil, kind of tamping it down. It's always a good idea too to make sure that you have this root mass soaked so it's wet, and then you can just lift it out easily. But if you put a dry soil mass, like that one's really dry today, and you put it into dry potting soil and you think that you're going to just add water to the top, it's never going to completely saturate that potting soil. Your potting soils that are for inside have a lot of organic matter, especially some bark, sphagnum moss, vermiculi, and they do not hold much moisture unless they're completely saturated. So you want to make sure that you can get that mass wet so you're not going to dry your plant out or stays dried out. And if that does happen, grab a bucket good old white bucket, a deep one, and stick the whole plant inside, submerge it. You might have to take, I don't know, like jars or something to push it down so it stays below the surface, because it's just going to want to pop up. So keep it submerged probably 30 minutes, sometimes even longer. But that way that all that soil mass is going to hydrate. And then your plant's going to be much happier because its roots have nutrients. And with fertilizing, don't ever fertilize a dry plant because you'll burn it. Bigger than life, burn it. I worked at a premier greenhouse when it was open here for, oh golly, I don't know, Philip was a baby, 30 years. They sent me to go fertilize in the back, and supposedly somebody had had watered thoroughly 3 hours before I got there. Supposedly. They did not. We lost so many hundreds of dollars worth of native perennial plants because I fertilized them. And again, it was commercial fertilizer, but it wouldn't matter if it's organic or commercial because it's absorbing all that solution when it's dry and thirsty, and it was just detrimental. So always remember that you need to have your soil moist before you do fertilize.
So when you're repotting, I've heard in the past that you should like kind of mess up the root ball. You don't do that. You just soak it.
I don't do that.
Okay, good.
Soak it good. Now, if it is circling, like those have started to circle on the bottom, you can clip. Go in there and clip. Use a sharp scissors and clip so that circling stops. It's especially important if you're working with trees or shrubs because they'll continue to girdle and eventually kill themselves. So there was a study that Organic Gardening Magazine, Rodale Institute did, and it compared transplanting 3 different ways. Leaving them alone, fluffing the root mass at the bottom third, or just completely disbogulated the whole entire thing. And then they studied them throughout the growing season, and the one that did not do well was the one that was all messed up. The one that did the most was the one that was least disturbed, and then followed by the one that had the bottom third teased. They call it teasing the roots out. So you can do that. Yeah. Hi, Emma. The office cat has joined us. And again, when you do the cutting, make sure that you take your thieves' wipe and cut the blades on your scissors, snippers, or whatever you're going to use, because you do not want to spread bacteria or fungus.
I have a question. You talked about the cinnamon bark will kill plants, like for weeds outside.
You betcha.
How do you mix that solution up? Because I have a problem area.
Okay, you're going to take about 25 drops of cinnamon bark and put it in I like to use a gallon sprayer. You can get those little cute little gallon sprayers for $10. Yep. So put your water in that, a couple drops of your dish soap.
Okay.
And 25 drops of that cinnamon bark. In the hottest part of the day, the sunniest day, and just use your little hands, that little squishy thingy, and spray it on them. And it's non-selective. It's just as bad as Roundup. It will kill anything it comes in contact with. So if you have other plants out there that you have a ponytail back behind you too. Ponytail palm. Cool. Sorry. I'm like a squirrel moment on that little movie Up. I get distracted very easily, especially with a plant or a kid or a grandkid or something. Anyway, spray it on there and it destroys the cellular structure. There's a waxy structure on plants that protects them. And that's where our essential oils come from. Now, when you break it down with the soap and that cinnamon bark, because that cinnamon bark burns, it just burns right through it. That protective layer is gone, and they will just poof, wilt, just like lettuce when you're making a wilted lettuce salad. You put that hot oil on there and poof, it's done.
Now, can I do that in a flower bed where I've got a vine that's just invaded my flower bed and I don't know what it is.
Probably bindweed.
Yeah, how do I'm fighting it.
Okay, that's gonna be tough. What I would suggest is that you get some buckets.
Okay.
And if you're gonna spray with a hand sprayer, get some buckets, tin cans, whatever you can, and here's a cup, put it over the plants that you want to save. So
Oh,
you
okay.
do, and do a section at a time, spray it, let those, and the problem with doing that, when you cover them with buckets, is you're doing this in the heat of the day to get rid of the bad ones. Now,
Right.
what you've done is you created this hothouse inside whatever cap that you placed over the top. And that can be detrimental to the plants you're trying to save as well.
And I've got big hostas.
Oh, hostas. Yeah, well, I think a better choice to do there would be a paintbrush
Okay.
or old cloth. And what you would do is saturate it with that cinnamon bark.
Yep.
And then you're going to go along with either the paintbrush or your cloth and wipe it on the surface of the leaves of the plant that you want to get rid of.
Okay. Would you
So-
do the underneath side too?
Yeah.
Yep,
As much
where
as
it
you can.
breathes.
Yep,
Okay.
as much as you can.
Okay.
And it doesn't have the, like, leaves the 3, let it be, poison ivy.
No,
stuff.
no, no, no. Nope.
Oh, thank God.
Yes, thank goodness.
Yeah.
I had and I have fought it and fought it and fought it and pull it and it keeps coming back. And
The problem, what's happening is each time that you pull it and break it off, probably 5 other plants will come from that place you pulled it from.
ugh,
That's its survival mechanism.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it spreads by rhizomes and stolons, and those are the underground roots that, well, I call them roots, but they're rhizomes and stolons. You're not seeing those, but that's how it spreads throughout everything. And
Okay.
yeah, if you get stuff like that in there, it's very difficult to get out.
Well,
Uh,
Heat's coming back, so. it'll be a
yeah,
good
the
day
heat
to
is
spend-
coming back. Yes, it is. I think it's Wednesday. Yeah, so tomorrow we're back up in 90s and 100s again.
Yep.
Oh,
so,
yippee skippy. A
yeah.
lot of people have been complaining because their strawberries are, well, the June bearing strawberries are almost done, but the everbearings, they're just bloop on the vines now. It's the heat. And the same with the tomatoes. The tomatoes are kind of orange and blotchy. They're not ripening. Anytime it's above 85 degrees, they stop that ripening process. So they just kind of go dormant, like all of us just kind of go, oh, we don't want to do anything. So once the temperatures drop, we'll see a lot better response from our produce outside in the garden.
Okay.
And our corn loves it. They probably grow 2 to 3 feet a night with this heat. Yeah, it's crazy. You can hear it moving.
Well, I had the recipe for the spray with the bleach and the, or
No,
not,
no, no.
the vinegar.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Vinegar and,
salt.
but I know once you use the salt, then they say you can't grow anything there later. So I was a
It
little,
really, you have a problem with your soil. Yeah, you do when you use vinegar and salt because it makes it very acidic. I know salt's basic, but when you mix it with vinegar,
Yeah.
you kind of different concoction there.
yeah, I thought I'd
yeah.
use that under my deck though. So
Yeah, that's
where
a good
it's just
idea.
gravel. Yeah.
Right. Yep, you sure can. Wouldn't be a
Okay.
problem there.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. Donna is a world of experts. So Donna, show your plants behind you.
Donna, you're gonna have to talk though, so that you come up on our video, otherwise we won't be able to
Yes.
see them on the recording.
Unmute yourself, Donna.
No, she's not unmuting.
Well, I wonder if she's kind of froze. Nope, there she is.
There she is. Okay, Donna,
Okay.
now speak to us.
Yeah, oh yeah, there you go.
That is my, I don't know if I'm showing it right. This is my passion plants.
Yeah,
that
purple
I've
passion
had
plant.
for, oh gosh, 25 years.
That's
And
gorgeous.
cut them back and repot them and share them because it takes
Mhm.
over the world.
And that's a fuzzy leaf plant.
What?
That's the
Oh,
fuzzy
yeah.
leaf plant. Yep.
And this is my mother-in-law's tongue, which happens to be slightly taller than me.
Golly sakes.
Then I also have a Christmas cactus. This house isn't nearly as good as my prior house because I don't have as much light. The passion plant loves north and east light.
Yeah,
And
they do.
grow like it's insane. And it never goes outside because it's one of those fuzzy plants that you don't dare let the leaves get wet.
Nope,
So water
nope.
from the bottom. Okay.
Thank you, Donna.
Oh, you're welcome.
Your Sansevieria, that mother-in-law tongue, to be that high has to be at least 15 years old.
Oh, it's older than that. It's,
Yeah.
I think it's closer to 20.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's fabulous. It likes its home. It likes the care you're giving it.
Well, and I had a philodendron one time. This was in the house that had lots of really great windows. I had to tie it up because it was blocking the television. And when I took it out to repot it, its roots had pushed the bottom out of the pot, so I had to get a whole new one.
Mm-hmm. They do
It looked
that.
like what you see in San Diego.
They're growing everywhere and huge,
yeah.
huge leaves. Yes.
Yeah.
I had a pothos like this that I kind of let go wild when I was when I lived in Texas, and it went up. It crawled the wall up and around the window, and the roots, they have kind of like little feeler roots, almost grew into the drywall around that window. And it's just, oh, what a mess to get that off.
Mm.
So I wouldn't recommend letting pothos, the split leaf philodendron will do the same. It has aerial roots like they're used to growing in trees in the understories. So always make sure that the calves are running in the lot. They're having fun. Sorry. They will adhere. So give them something to grow up. If you want them to grow up, give them a bamboo pole, or you can buy COIR, C-O-I-R covered poles that you can kind of wrap them around and make what they call a tree out of. So that's another idea.
I don't have real good light in my house, and I have lost a lot of my plants because of that.
Right.
Is there anything I can do? Like, I mean, I don't know what kind of light to buy that I could, but where I could have a little area where I could have some plants.
They make grow lights. They're like a fluorescent light. And
Okay.
I have that in the basement. And what my husband did is just went and bought one of those, I don't know, I think it's a 4-foot shop light. I'm going to call it a shop light.
Okay.
And then you can buy the bulbs. They're grow light bulbs. I think the shop light itself was $12 or $14. And I think the grow light bulbs are close to 30.
Yeah,
So
I knew it'd be
there's-
expensive.
Yeah. And then they also have smaller bulbs that are more like the LEDs now.
Okay.
So you could have like a little table lamp and put that in the center of an area or in a corner of an area and do that. Look for it. Make sure it just says the horticultural light.
Yeah. I have a light, a fluorescent light that was actually made for birds when I had my parrot, because they
Okay.
need a lot of sunlight. And I think
Yeah.
it might be a good light to try, but I didn't know for sure.
Check the wavelength. If it's the red wavelength, the blue wavelength, if you even have any information on that.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with birds.
Okay.
So I don't know what lighting requirements their bulbs would have.
Okay, I'll check on that.
Yeah, and it more than likely, if it works for your birds, it's going to be fine for your plants.
That's
So
what
you
I
don't
was
have to buy
thinking.
anything.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I had to find a new home for the bird because it didn't like anybody but me, and it tried to bite my little granddaughter. So it was like,
Oh,
yeah, it was time to rehome the bird. So I had
Yeah.
taken somebody else. So now I had to let go of the bird.
Granddaughter's much more important.
Yes, yes, she was pretty little, and she would watch me hold him on my finger, and she
Oh,
went over to the cage and stuck her finger in and said, I hold him, and he was ready to get her. And so it's like, we had to do something different.
right. And you know, there are plants, like I said, you're going to need to do your research, but there are plants that thrive in low light conditions because that's what
Yes.
they grow on the forest floor. The Sansevieria, or mother-in-law tongue, is one of those. Also, Chinese evergreen will do well in low light conditions, and rubber plants will do well in low light. And I have good luck with the split leaf philodendron, or the
Okay.
monstera, that will do well in low light. And there are some ferns that like low light. I think bird nest fern is one that comes to mind. And if you want blooming plants, you get the Rieger begonias. they will
Okay.
do well in low light. Peace lily, of course, or the spathilium.
Yes, I love a peace lily.
Yeah, that's another low light.
I miss my spider plants. Those were always my favorite.
I was trying to find spider plants. I've been trying to find them I went up to Scotia yesterday, tried to find some, couldn't find them, stopped in another little town on the way back home, couldn't find them. I don't know what has happened to the spider plants, but
That's
I would
crazy.
sure like to grab some more. I have plumeria, which are they produce the lei flowers from Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm in Nebraska, so my husband carries them to the basement every year. And I was taking the little baby spiderette plants and sticking them around the base of the plumeria in the big pots to make kind of nice little fill. And they did really well until last year, whatever that bug was that ate my pothos, ate the spider plant as well. So didn't eat the plumeria because the plumeria has that toxic white sap. You break it, scar it, this white oozy sap like the milkweed comes out. So I didn't like that, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But
In my past house, my spider plants just did amazing. But yeah, they don't like my new home.
that's too bad.
Yeah.
No fun plants. Is there any other questions out there, Britta?
No, I think you did. I think you got them all. So thank you so much for sharing and all the knowledge. I am like so inspired to go get to get the book.
Do
I
your
can figure out-
research first.
So I can figure out what plants I need. I do know enough when I'm at the store, I always Google the plant name to see, does it work well with dogs? Because we have dogs.
Exactly.
But I am so thankful for you and your expertise, Patsy, and everybody for joining us. If you are not a current Young Living member and you're interested in learning about or getting some of our products, please go get back with the person that shared this with you and let them know that you know what it is that you're interested in, and if you have any questions, and we would be happy to help you. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a good night.